comment was, Dave, everybody heard this. Pasco got into what you have to do when you pick them, and I'm just saying, well, you're going to develop them, and so your progression, your booklet, whatever curriculum you provide to take them there, that's your job once you pick them. So when you pick them, you don't pick them based on how skilled they are right now. In my opinion, they've got to have an adequate degree, but at beginning ages, at a very young age, some of them might be just trying goalie later. And so, Dave, would you talk about the criteria for selection at your young ages, like U11, U13? Again, Dave, sorry to have you repeat yourself.
No problem. No, I mean, right now in the city here, we work with currently goalie coaches everywhere in the city, and doing minor hockey goalie specific evaluations for the organizations. And definitely there needs to be, yes, on ice, the skating ability, the goalies that can skate, the goalies that have played out in the past and that can move around the crease and have balance at the U11, U13 age group is very, very important. But there's an element of compete and there's an element of fearlessness also that you can see clearly when you expose the goalies, against certain shooters. Once a goalie starts to flinch, and I can deal with a goalie that is at that age flopping around a lot, but wants to stop the puck and is not trying to play dodgeball. So you can tell the competitive level of certain goalies, and the fearlessness. I mean, they want to get hit by the puck. They want to make saves versus the ones that are flinching or lifting their shoulders. So that to me is a big element at that age group.
Any questions on that? Hal, Peter, Tom, Pasco, can you elaborate on that? The intangible to me, when we get down to the bottom of the list of players, you've already picked your top 14. You're looking at your last 3. To me, intangibles are the only difference because they're going to get better if they have the intangibles.
Right. Yep.
Go ahead, and then I'll ask Pasco to comment. Peter?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't hear you. So, yeah, my question is, both Dave and Pasco talked about, the kid that was a better skater. So what type of skating is that you are actually looking for? There's the different motions, right, that the goaltenders have to accomplish in the crease compared to, a forward or a D. So are there certain drills or certain things you look for in the actual tryout process for them to skate to reveal if they can, quote unquote, skate as well as a goalie, or is it just in general balance, being comfortable with all the pads taken off them at that young age and being able to just physically move around?
Pasco?
Well, at that particular age, like I said, it comes down to the skating. You can put somebody that can skate in the net and they'll feel more comfortable as long as what Dave was saying, that they have that desire that they want to stop the puck. They have that desire to want to get hit by the puck versus, leaning away from the puck and creating space for a glove to catch it or to wave at it. So those are, that's why I said at the beginning, it's not so much an evaluation of selecting the goaltender, it's an evaluation of what their skill set inventory is. Can they skate in a shuffle position with their toe caps pointed up the ice at the shooter with their hands aligned and their eyes on the puck? Can they align themselves that way? Or when they move, is the glove pointing in one direction, is their toe cap over here and things like that? So it's just about trying to gain some level of coordination of skills. Their highway from their head to their feet is short and quick versus maybe a really tall kind of lanky kid who hasn't built that super highway yet might be kind of a Bambi on the ice and lack the balance. So those goaltenders that are bigger, if they skate like they're 5'7", they're in their shuffle, they can be square up to the shooter without recruiting extra muscles or extra body parts to move them laterally, then they would be up a little bit higher than the guy that doesn't know that yet. But I'm very careful not to pigeonhole them because everyone develops at a completely different rate of speed than the next guy. One guy might peter out very early, one guy might not have the work ethic, and the other guy might be every single day, no matter what you tell him, he's doing it, plus he's doing another 10% of his own. So that's kind of like what Wally's talking about is, do they have the desire to get better, or have they finished, or is the tryout the finish line for a lot of goalies?
Okay, I've got another question, David and Pasco.
Sure.
When you're picking goalies for a pro team, are we safe to assume they have the intangibles? They have tools. Obviously, you can refine the tools they've got. But are intangibles a problem with goalies that you've worked with at higher levels? Pasco, can you talk to the national team or pros you've worked with?
Yeah, absolutely. There's some people that embrace development. One goaltender that comes into mind is a goaltender that struggled with certain skating pieces and then quietening down their movement laterally. So you have to almost become a good salesman with them as well to help them understand what is it that you like about your game. Let's take a look at your game, and then what is missing. Do they have the desire to get there? So some goaltenders do, and some goaltenders have gotten to the National Hockey League level and they want to protect what got them there. The problem is that there's so much video evidence that we're, like, as a goaltending coach, we're taking another step now, and that is not reinventing their game, but closing out or creating additional options for them to be less predictable to the people that have the book on them. So hopefully that makes sense. So a goaltender, that had a great playoff run in the National Hockey League, well, now every goaltending coach is going to be studying that goaltender like Vasilevsky and saying, okay, well, how can you beat Vasilevsky? What are his tendencies? And does he have the motivation, the drive to make the adjustment, and more importantly, the confidence? And for a goalie coach, do you have the permission to, invade that piece that he covets or she covets so well? Shannon Zabados, for example, I'll use her as an example. Phenomenal goalie, a little pro, true through and through. And we were talking about screens, stationary, mobile, and layered screens. And, she didn't care. If the puck went past her, she's like, okay, what do you see? I want to know. Because the desire for her, the hunger for her to refine her game was so high. Whereas some people that they might be more restrictive. For Shannon, I've got a video that I'll send out to you guys if you like, looking on one side and then not being able to connect on the other side of the screen or fill in the frames. And then I just whispered in her ear, what am I doing? Okay, keep your eye on the puck, connect the dotted lines and read the trajectory. She witnesses the release, bang, and she catches every puck after that. And that comes down to giving access. I could always tell a pro when you can give them a piece of information and they apply it to their game right away, even though they've never done it before. And those are some of the things that I look for in a goaltender for sure.
Dave, can I get you to elaborate on that from your experience working at higher levels?
Yeah, when as Pasco was talking about this, I just love to see, NHL goalies that finally make it in, to the NHL. First they're backups, and then they have opportunities to play. But what's the next level? And I just look how ugly of a stance Connor Hellebuck had at the start of his career, but the size and the dedication and the willingness to change certain things in his game and to keep on, evolving as a goalie and last year to become a Vezina Trophy winner. I mean, that to me says a lot about the character of the individual that is willing to make some changes and understand every day, understand the game and understand power play options and what can be done, and to trust also the goalie coach, and in terms of you are partners in this, and so I coached some goalies, some minor pro goalies that were all about the but. I call them the but goalies, and they always had an answer for questions, and it was all but what if, and what but the coachability to learn about the NHL game on a day-to-day basis is something that I really feel that goalies need to have at that level.
That's a great point. I guess for both of you, one of the questions I had written down was, I've always wondered, goalie coaches are working with the goalies, and then you've got a staff. And Pasco, in your book, you use the term collaboration.
Right.
And I was really intrigued about that because it tied into a story that David told me years ago about Kiprusoff. And, you've got to know as a coach and the goalie how the team is playing in their zone. You have to know the structure that they have to play within. And putting it simple, playing 2-on-1s, the conventional way is to keep the shooter on the outside and don't let him pass it across. Theoretically. I'm assuming at the NHL that that's what they would do, but I'm not sure they play 2-on-1s similarly, conventionally that way. And Dave, the story you told me years ago was how your team, or it may have been Dave Lowry coaching the Flames, your team adjusted to giving, overplaying the puck carrier, Kiprusoff, one of the pass across. You recall that?
Yeah, well, one of the first times I heard about that was Dominic Hasek.
Hey Siri, hydrogen production.
He absolutely wanted to pressure the puck, and his thought process was, I'll play a deeper game on a 2-on-1. You guys be aggressive on the puck carrier, and I will read the pass, and I will attack once that pass is sent over. I want you guys to pressure the puck so that the player that is receiving the puck on the other side, he has to deal with receiving the puck properly, finding holes, and I'll attack that player once the puck is made. So, we kind of use that. We're looking at the type of individual that Mika Kiprusoff was, and he was one of the only goaltenders in the NHL at the time that was ultra flexible and an amazing skater, that even though he needed to play a more aggressive game on a 2-on-1, his excuse me, I just want to message. Hold and accept. Excuse me. Send the voicemail. Sorry. And his flexibility allowed him to make that backdoor save on a 2-on-1. So, to me, there's different ways of playing it, and I had that conversation many times with Robin Regier and Denny Gauthier with the Calgary Flames. A 2-on-1, there is no proper way of. There's not one way of playing it. If you are attacking or spooking, Rhett Warner would spook the puck carrier entering the zone, and then take the other player. But a 2-on-1, you look at the end result of a 2-on-1, and there are many options. The righty passing to a lefty or lefty passing to a righty. There are many options. So you look at the end result, and if it worked out, it ends up being the proper way of playing that 2-on-1. So it's understanding what you have in terms of your goaltender. If you have an oversized goalie, he can play a little bit deeper. If you have an undersized goalie, it'll be very interesting to see Dustin Wolf here. He reminds me a lot of Mika Kiprasov in terms of his ultra flexibility and his great skating. But to see how they will be, coordinating together on the 2-on-1 to see how they master that, simplify the 2-on-1 and take away those scoring chances.
Pasco, in your book, the amount of details and awareness of what a goalie has to see and interpret to position properly and react to situations, it's really remarkable. And I don't know if every goalie coach is able to communicate with that degree of detail, and whether players appreciate it. Does it just take an academic type goalie who's totally willing to listen to anything? Is your information, what about the right stuff, the right amount, and the right time? You're working with goalies, you know what they are like. Like coaches, we say you can be doing too much, you can be talking too much. There's an art to mentoring goalies, there's an art to coaching. I guess I'm saying is how much information is too much, and how do you respond to that when you're delivering it and adapt to that?
That's a great question. And, in reality, you guys do this all the time with coaching, whether you're coaching a young group of athletes or you're coaching a group of pros. But most importantly, it's to take the curriculum, the information, and only assign it and only teach to a certain degree or to certain levels. So, for example, if you're teaching a 2-on-1, and Robin Lehner was the same way that Dave was talking as well. He prefers to deal with the pass, not the player with the puck. The least amount of time that the player has to catch control and release the puck, the better it is for Robin Lehner. So in this particular case, it's not right or wrong, it's just preference. So then the first thing that I would use so that the defenseman would have a cue for the goaltender is what hand is the receiving player? And if the receiving player is on his backhand without the option of going into a one-timer, so for example, that would be kind of a high-low pass, player delays and the other player drives ahead and goes past the D for the deflection on goal. If that player is a backhanded receiving player, force the pass, because now that player is going to have to really catch the puck, go back onto their forehand, or have potential to lose the puck. If it's a strong hand to strong hand, meaning a left-handed player is passing to a right-handed receiving player, there's a lot of control there. So you can end up being the piggy in the middle, if you will. So it's important to understand the distance and the time. And so the first thing that I would talk about is, what hand is receiving, and then if they've got that, no problem, then I would release a new piece of information, which would be, is this a high to low, a low to high, or an east-west play? And then we'd break down that piece so the goalie and the defenseman know exactly what to do in each of those particular categories to minimize the amount of thinking and more of an automated response.
Yeah,
so it's building a game plan.
Take what you're saying and make it practical to our level.
Right.
Tom Malloy, coach U13. I'm watching U13s, elite U13, so-called.
Mm-hmm.
They don't open up when they're on the off wing to be able to one-time it or no dust shoot. So
right.
they're learning that. And so as a coach, we're trying to teach 2-on-1 attacks with drive skating. And if you're on the off wing, you've got a shooting advantage. If you're on the on wing, as a coach, I've always taught you can forehand shovel the puck like a one-timer. But the knowledge of what you teach and what you do at one level or another, I'm saying in minor hockey, I think we have to teach defense to protect the middle. Dave used the term spook. Dave King used bluff. Fake you're going to play the defender, and quite often the puck will come to your stick because they're going to pass it across. So those points are what I'm trying to work with minor hockey coaches. So the degree of expertise of what you're doing in the details, I guess I'm just wondering how both of you have dealt with how much information do you offer, and then how do the information that you offer relate to what the coaches are doing and what they want?
Well, that's probably one of the most important pieces. So if I'm joining a hockey team, you could let me know what level, or I can give you an example of a younger level and a pro level if you want. But if we started off with the younger level, the first thing that I would talk about would be, what is your game plan for the team as a coach? So what is going to be happening? What type of system are you going to run if there is some sort of a system? Usually in minor hockey, it's very, very, very simple and very basic. And then work on the positioning detail of what the defense would be. So if they're young, you're right. They're going to drive the net, do a drive, say a high to low pass, and they're going to deflect the puck on goal. If they do an east-west, how far are you challenging originally on the east-west? And because you're going to have to go east-west more so than if you're challenging really far out, you're going to have to travel 10 feet to get to the other part of the anchor position. So young kids, basic positioning, and recognizing high, low, low, high, east, west would be the first stage, and I wouldn't go beyond that. And Dave will probably agree with me on this one. The problem with the majority of goalie coaches is that they want to teach everything that skill has to offer all at once, and they don't need to know that. And a perfect example is a reverse VH, as we talked about during our call. You don't need to teach a reverse VH to a kid that's 10 years old, 9 years old, and 10 years old if they can't butterfly and recover properly. So each of those skills gives birth to the next skill. And so you could teach them to butterfly into the post. And the only difference is that you're going to lean on one side, which is going to free one leg, and therefore you have what is the remnants of a reverse VH. Then eventually you'll get more and more detail. What should the anchor foot do? What angle should it be at? So you'd have to climb that ladder with your checklist to make sure. I have a book called it's more of a self-preservation book. It's just a workbook where a coach can go through and go, okay, I've covered that, I've covered that, I've covered that. And the goaltender also has that same book where you can go, when they're doing a skill set inventory, you could sit down and go, oh, I suck at this, I'm really good at this, and then you can formulate that plan for that particular young goalie. With a pro, it's different. I'll pre-scout that pro and identify what are the strengths, what are the opportunities for improvement, and then third, what are their tendencies that any player that's at a top level, I usually focus on the top 10% of scorers. What can they do to expose you? How can they make you move in a way that's going to unlock one of the combinations in your lock? So that's the kind of the skew of the information. For example, I was with a goaltender yesterday, 17. He's not quite a refined skater yet. And then I had a pro that was going to Utah Grizzlies camp. I was teaching him a lateral shuffle, but the glide foot becomes pivoted so that you're able to change the angles on exactly 2-on-1s. And I'm happy to share that video with you guys later on. But it's something that I've had this kid since he was 10, and he was drafted by Tampa. But you have to know what you can do based on what the goaltender's capabilities are. You have to understand, are they a good skater? Can they pivot? Can they, or is it going to be too steep of a climb? And we have to concentrate that a little bit more in the summertime when we're training. Dave?
Dave, can you comment on what we're talking about, which is having so much to offer in terms of what they might need, but what do they buy into? What do they accept? What do they embrace?
Well, I vividly remember, you're always learning about, in my first few years with the Flames, as soon as Mika Kiprasov would say, Dave, I can't be thinking out there. He was very, very good in his first few years of, taking the time and going in it, reviewing a game. And, but once the game was on, he says, I can't be thinking out there. I just need to be reacting and activating all my senses so that I just play. And that's how he was at his best. I think at the youth level hockey, U13, the maybe elite level U13, there's somebody, a good friend of mine, Ryan Honick in the U.S., his whole theme, we went for a camp there in Green Bay, and his whole theme was embrace the simplicity of the position. And that stuck with me, and I the best coaches are the best thieves, but embrace the simplicity of the position. At that age, if there is a perfect pass that goes through a defenseman's triangle and then makes it to the other side where the guy is actually with a 65 flex stick, he's able to get it away and put it above the pad, well, good for him. But to embrace the simplicity and to make it very clear that the goalie is focusing. Yes, he's aware of righty, lefty on the weak side, but take the shooter, and you need to make sure that shot does not come in and like the direct shot, because the chances of everything happening just perfectly right on a pass to a backdoor player driving the far post, putting it in, are very, very slim. So we spend, and even like at the NHL level, you just look on a game day. The game day skates with the 2-on-1s and the 2-on-1s. I've had this conversation with, I forget his name right now, but he says the amount of 2-on-1s that are given up in a game versus the amount of times that we practice 2-on-1s, it really happens maybe 2 or 3 times a game, but we practice 2-on-1s on game day every single time, and it doesn't really happen that much in terms of in game. So you look bad on a 2-on-1 when, for example, Connor McDavid is opening up his hips and he's looking past all the way, and he just sends a quick release underneath Jacob Markstrom. I still have that clip, and I use it in all my goalie camps. You need to embrace the simplicity and do your job, and that shooter is the most important guy out there. So that to me is a big thing. You have a randomness in hockey that you don't have in football or in baseball in a controlled, slow-paced environment, or where they have breaks and stuff. There's a lot of randomness, and pucks hit skates and stuff. So you can't be complicating the game more than it is, and embrace the simplicity of the position.
Can either of you talk about goalies cheating situations, giving up space? Do you know what I'm referring to? Is
Like
that,
trying to bait somebody, you mean?
yeah?
The odds are stacked against you now, because as Dave was alluding to with the flex and the stick, the one thing that's gone better and better and better and better is the sticks. The kick points in the sticks, the releases have gotten better. They've gotten better at masking their releases, which is, critical to a goaltender's success. So if you bait now, you might pay a price a little bit more. Now, if you're talking younger kids, we just got to remember that I have to adjust my coaching. I'm sure Dave does, for goalies that live in Western Canada, because of the Western Hockey League draft being so young. So they have to learn a little bit more information as quickly as they can, because once they get to that level, if they don't have the ability to read the play, that it becomes much more difficult. But I would say it'd be very difficult to cheat, and I don't encourage the goaltenders that I work with to cheat. I tell them two things: expect your opposition to be perfect every time. Doesn't matter what you read in the newspaper that someone's injured or this or that. Expect them to be perfect. And for you, you have to honor every shot, no matter what. Because if you dump a puck in 200 feet, I've seen Corey Crawford miss the puck. We've all seen goalies miss the puck from 200 feet, as they ice the puck in the National Hockey League. It happens. So those two things are absolutely critical. But leading to the point that Dave said so eloquently was the fact that when I was at the Dallas Stars camp in 2013, we had goalies from all over the world there, different goalies, but we all talked to them separately. And the one thing that they don't want is they don't want anything in their head. So they use music to get into I kind of use it like this. Your job as a goalie coach is to get them to feel something, get them to feel invincible, get them to feel simplicity. And when you fall in love with the simplistics of the game that Dave was talking about, you can't add things to a goaltender's movement. And the higher you go, the less time you have. So the movement has to become much quicker, involve less of your body to recruit energy to move you, things like that. So, by using your glove to move here or trying to move away from the puck to move toward the puck like they do in a lot of T pushes, that has to be removed from the game very quickly.
I've got another question here. And working with coaches, I know in minor hockey we've got goalie coaches, and I don't know if the coaches talk to goalie coaches about what they're doing. They just let them be, and that's it. What is what the relationship of a coaching staff of a minor hockey team to the goalie? What level of appreciation, collaboration is necessary at that young age to get the best possible result?
Well, I think communication is key. Obviously, I see a goalie coach now, and we need to, as goalie coaches, throughout the years, I've learned that you need to see yourself and you need to say that you are a hockey coach specialized in goaltending. And when you're a hockey coach specialized in goaltending, now you're even more so part of the coaching staff, because you're not on your own island. Last time I checked, this is a team game, and football is on right now, NFL football, and you have these D-zone coordinators. And to me, if everybody is open and willing to share and ask questions, I mean, the best relationship that I've had in terms of spending time and asking questions was in Carolina with Steve Smith. I learned so much from Steve Smith as a defenseman coach, only because we were both two single guys that were in an apartment complex in Carolina, and then we'd just go at the end of a practice day or whatever, we'd go have a bottle of wine and share some, Dave, what are you thinking? What is Cam Ward thinking right now? And like Noah Hannafin, Noah was starting his career. We had Jacob Slavin and Pesci and those guys. We had the best top 3 penalty kill in the National Hockey League from 2014 to 2017. We were top 3 in the NHL. We were not ready to win and make playoffs, but the communication and the coordination that we had, understanding that how can we spend less time on a penalty kill in our own zone? We have this elite puck-handling goalie in Cam Ward that can use a lot of fakes and all that. How can we quickly get out? Where can we pressure the players so that we would stand up at the blue line with the 1-3 penalty kill, just stand them up and force the dump in. And from there, we had activated the plan where Bordeaux was going behind the net to stop it. And then Jacob Slavin was very quick to go on the backside. So all that coordination and all, you need to be talking. And I just really love spending time in front of a TV screen, watching video, and sharing ideas. And if anything, compared to my time with the Flames around Daryl Sutter, for example, there was no debate, no questioning. It was his way. But in Carolina, we had those moments that we could share and ask questions. And what do you think of this? And what is he thinking? And that made a huge difference in terms of D-zone coordination.
Pasco, can you comment on that? I don't know how many head coaches you've worked with at an elite level that allowed you to provide input, allowed you to question, inquire, and in fact collaborate together in terms of creating strategies like Dave's talked about.
Well, that's
The dump in so that because of the strength of your goalie, you're preventing the attack, not letting them across the river, so they're going to dump. But that seems to have come from the defensive coach working with the goalie coach to becoming a team strategy. That seems to me to make sense.
Well, it was a secret to what we did at UBC, going from 1-27 to winning 6 championships in 10 years. But it's a rare thing. I'll start off with this. The coach or head coach is the decision maker, and it's either going to be he or her that's going to allow people to bring their A game to the table so that they can give the person the best opportunity or chance to win. So when I worked with Perry Pern on the national team, I said to Perry, let's talk about your system, what you have envisioned in your head for what success is. And then as he was sharing his information, then it was about putting together the plan that would complement his plan. That's why I went and took the Hockey Canada Level 1 and Level 2 coaching certification, because I wanted to understand what was going through the head coach's head and try to create that piece of the puzzle that he or she may miss, so that we have the ability to kind of use everybody as strength. So I kind of use the 5-finger rule. Everyone's individually they're very strong, but if I grab your finger, we can break it. But if we make it a fist, then it's very difficult to break one anchor of that. And I'm sure you guys have heard that cliche in the past, but the main objective here is that I had a coach in Graham Thomas that would say, hey, Pasco, what do you think? What are we doing here? What about this? What do you see in the offense? What do you see in the defense? And it's a lot more fun for us, and we can share our knowledge about what we see, because it's nice to have an educated set of eyes watching. Whereas some coaches, like Dave was referring to, the goalie coach is basically like on a totem pole, and the only thing you see from a goalie coach is their hair sticking out of the dirt. You don't see the goalie coach. You see the head coach or general manager. You see the assistants, and so forth. So, you've got an array of coaches, and it depends on how much they're allowing you the opportunity to participate within that group environment. But I found that we were always way more successful in my 30 years working together. And like Dave was saying, and I heard Billy Ranford say this in the past too, it's like, you're a head coach. Your job is to be a coach with a specialization in defense, or a specialization in goaltending, or a specialization in power play. And I will share this one thing with you. The Milwaukee Admirals have a head coach there, and it's going to be, and his name escapes me. Excuse me for the hour earlier wake up, but he's incredible, and he had 4 shutouts in a row at the time I was talking with him, and he actually does that. He sits with his assistant coaches. He sits with his goaltending coaches, or his goaltending coach, and they devise a plan. Where does our goaltender get scored on more often than not? So that's easy to find nowadays. We're not allowing anybody to score from that area, and he defines his defense based on on those pieces. So now he's got his forwards thinking about it. He's got his D's thinking about it, and his goaltender saying, "This is an acceptable shot. This is a dangerous shot. This is acceptable. This is danger." And he did very well, very, very well. It's nice to have Askarov in the net too at the time, but yeah, it was good.
Tom Malloy, are you still on?
Yeah, I am.
Because in relation to this, Tom keeps track of passes. He is a parent doing that, but he also keeps track of shots, where they're taken from with a number and the consequence of the shot by a circle, single line, double line, or blank. And that information is photographed on a whiteboard and mailed to Tom between periods. And he does have it between periods breaks this year. At U13, you don't. But that information for a coach, who the top shooters are, where they're taking shots from, what you're giving up. Dave King years ago used to keep track on the bench during games, every scoring chance, who was on the ice, and he broke them down into numerous categories. I think he had 5: direct attack, indirect attack, low zone offense, face-off plays, and special teams. And he kept track of that during the period, during the game, and you had information where you knew how to adapt coaching in terms of what you had to tighten up without the puck. I think that, I don't know that I've ever heard of anybody adapting like that at this level to what Dave did years ago. Can you guys comment on, like, that's looking at it as, like, we all evaluate head coaches. And I thought at the time it was brilliant. It made sense to me. But I think when he tried to do that at pro, it was too much.
Can I make a comment, Wally?
Sure.
Like our last game, we were playing a team we beat 3-0 the time before. And the first period, we were behind 1-0. And so I get texted the picture of the stats, and they'd got 9 shots, a lot from the slot. We had 6, not 1 from the slot. And talked to our players about it, and and it's a visual for the players to see too. And then the next period we outshot them 17-3 because our forwards were going to the net. Now they were just playing on the outside the whole time. So it's a really good, it's for the coach, it's some real good direct feedback about what's happening out there. And and they write down the number of whoever shoots on both teams, and it's circled if they score. So you can see if one of their players is getting all their shots, and you can also see if some of your players are getting none, or they're always shooting from, the outside the dots, if they're just playing on the outside. So it's good feedback to have, between periods. And we get the plus and minuses there too, and you can see if someone's on for all the goals for or against or both or whatever.
Dave and Pasco, we're talking analytics here, basically statistics and information that you can process and apply or not apply, right stuff, right amount, right time, during the game, between periods, whatever. And I'm just curious here. I've always thought analytics were too much, distracting. What are your thoughts, Dave and Pasco, on the use of analytics? And is there too much of that? Is it interfering with the simplicity of the game?
Well, in my experience in Calgary at the time, analytics were just maybe starting out, but I saw a big difference in terms of bringing numbers into the coach's room in Carolina with Bill Peters back in the day. And Eric Tulsky was probably the up-and-coming, new guy with analytics. And so he was bringing some valuable information, but to be applying that information during the game is again, you can't be overdoing it and overthinking it. You have to. Bill Peters would always say, "Do you want to see my analytics?" And he would always point at his own two eyes. So you use the numbers to confirm what your eyes are seeing. The information that was sent out on a booklet on every game day was even to the extent where this referee calls 70% of the time stick infractions. And the other referee that we're going to have, he is more on roughing calls. And like all that information probably for a head coach was very valuable. But, shootouts, that's a controlled element that is very helpful to who to send and who has that edge. But I think once the game is on, you need to let the game play itself out, and you need to let the game come to you. So, yes, it is part of the game. It's a huge part of the game now, but it does have its limitations, and you need it to justify what you see actually doing all that video, prior to the game.
Pasco?
So it just depends on what level we're talking about. So I sent over a quick YouTube video of analytics and how I use it to against the opposition, and I also do the same thing for our goaltenders of what they're trying to do to us. And I think analytics definitely does have its place, but you have to have a purpose of it. So, for example, what are you tracking? What is the scoreboard? So one would be, okay, you want to track shots. What type of shots are you going to track? So what I did was, Finland came up with 10 scoring situations, and Canada picked up on it. And basically, it's like how many scoring chances are they getting within those 9 or 10 scoring situations, and what are we giving away habitually? The second thing is, when you divide the layers of depth, which I've sent to you guys, and it's in the book, how many shots are in the areas of control, how many shots are dangerous in the reaction type section, and how many are in block. Thirdly is, where are they shooting it as far as a target on the net? Because you might be giving something up, even though you didn't get beat, they hit 2 posts and had 5 shots on your glove side. So why is that? And those are things that we can pick up on very, very quickly. But I think you're going to have to explain all of this in under 2 minutes when you're presenting it to the team. So I usually put a video together like the one that I've included here, and then they can look through the pieces of who the key players are. So whenever you're in a face-off, you see 17 out there, the goaltender should know she has, or he has 11 goals and 1 assist. Number 7 has, one goal and 11 assists. So you know who's setting people up, who the shooter is, things like that. And I'll also include an app I created based on that for minor hockey to teach goalie IQ. So whoever is on the call and wants a copy of it, then you can reach out to me, and what I'll do is I'll get a free code so that you guys can use it and try it and give feedback on it. But it helps a lot when you're trying to assemble information, because I can then go into the proof of analytics and set up the next goaltending session based on what the needs are immediately. So if they're having problems with 2-on-1s or 3-on-1s, if they're having problems with low to high, which results in a screen, a deflection, or a backdoor pass, we can recreate based on priorities. So I think you've got to understand what your scoreboard is as a goalie coach or as a coach with a specialty, and whatever your specialty is, you better know how to win that specialty. And that's what I do.
Well, Pasco, like to me, you're an analytics goalie guy, and you use that information to work for you and get results and make progress. Everything you're talking about, I'm assuming you applied it at the UBC CIS level.
Yep.
Okay, and it was not overwhelming. I don't know how many male teams you've worked with, but I know that female athletes would eat information up like that.
They do.
They would be able to digest it, process it, not be distracted by it, but they would become engaged, and they would do whatever it takes, trusting you in the process. And
well, some of the things I shared with Marie-Philippe Poulin or a few of the other people that were on the national team, they say things like, nobody's ever explained that to me before. Like an example that I used with when sharing stuff with Hillary Knight or sharing stuff with other because part of what I do is teaching how to score, recognize tendencies. But understanding that when you're carrying the puck behind the net, instead of going there with a thought process, I'm going to stuff the puck, they go around the net and take a look at how their foot is going to receive the post for an RVH on, going from the left side to the right side. So if their pad goes into the net, they know they need to take a wider berth because the goaltender will get stuck, as Dave likes to call it, when you're down and deep, you're dead. Or if they get a skate on post, they don't even have to go all the way around or up over the goal line. They can just bank it off the back of the cowling or the skate. The third aspect is if they go in and they toe box the post, which is basically the string between the skate and the pad that that catches the post like an eagle grabs a branch. That same idea, but they have to lean so far over. So by getting to a spot that pulls them away from the post, opens them up on both sides. So it's just teaching them, making them aware, just like Gretzky used the side of the net to pass the puck from the goal line right out through the slot by using the angle of the net. It's about showing the players what a goalie must do or what their options are and how to beat them in those moments.
Guys, I really appreciate this information. I'm going to tonight to talk about sports psych and the idea of goaltenders being consistently in the zone to be their best. And at what level do you, and at what time, and how do you advocate managing the goaltenders in terms of when and if and how you're going to change them during a game?
I talked a lot, Dave. Do you want to go?
Go ahead, Dave.
I'll go after you if you want.
Could you clarify your question, Wally?
Well, at the NHL level, you've sort of got a 1A or a 1 and a 2.
Yeah.
And you might have a 1A and a 1B. But in the end, there's a 1 with a sensitive ego that you don't want to yank. So you play a game of managing the emotions of the goaltenders, and it's the coach's decision in the end. And the one thing that I find watching the NHL and watching the Flames is the inconsistency of goalies early in terms of their readiness, letting in soft early goals at the NHL level. But being
that's definitely a trend. Obviously, every start of the season, the chemistry is not there. the scouting is not there. There's new teams that have new players on different teams. Some that are clicking already on a power play. So the numbers in October, I know Kiprusoff was very criticized early on. His October numbers and early November and things. How come mid-November things stabilize and the numbers go down? I mean, there's something about, and that's where I come back to the D-zone coordination and trusting, what happens in front of you. Back in the day, Patrick Roy with the Montreal Canadiens, he needed a guy named Sylvain Lefebvre playing on defense for him. And when he moved on to Colorado, one of the first things that Colorado asked him is, who do we need to win a Stanley Cup besides Ray Bourque? Well, they needed to go get Sylvain Lefebvre because the demands of Patrick Roy saying, I trust what he does behind me or while I'm focusing on the puck. And they were able to win a second Stanley Cup together. And funny story, but you just look at who the defenseman coach was for the Florida Panthers this year. It was Sylvain Lefebvre. So you have that coordination and that understanding of who can you trust in the D zone. And in the start of a season, that with new players and every year, to have this stability is key. So the teams that have new players on teams, and it happens more and more now with UFAs that are going all over the place, it takes time, and it takes time to build that chemistry and trust in the D zone. So for me, as a number one goalie, if you can play through those moments and not change your demeanor, but trusting the process, and if there is a level of patience where your number one guy is part of the solution and not put too much pressure on, it was funny because in Calgary, if our number one goalie had a great game, it was our goalie was amazing tonight. And the next night, if he wasn't so good, Dave, your goalie was horse shit. So yesterday it was our goalie because he was good, but today it's your goalie because he was horse shit.
Yeah.
I don't need to say who the head coach, general manager was at the time.
Well, I think that's an era, and I don't know if that occurs today at the NHL level, but I don't know. I'm not even close to it. But that requires you have to wear a completely different hat as a goalie coach. You have to know who the head coach is, and you can share the story, Dave, and how you were able to get the goalie to cope with the firm, stern, direct nature of Sutter.
Well, you need to focus on your details, on your preparation, and the ability to block it out, and to, true number one goalies are able to park it, assess what happened after a game, and go back in there the next night, and to see the sun come up the next morning, and just to be a warrior, not a worrier about what other people think. And I would always say, to certain goalies, what other people think about you is none of your business. And just focus on the process. Let's get back to work. There will be highs, there will be lows. You can expect that. It's not always going to be your way. You're not going to go, in Kiprusoff's situation, you're not going to go 73-0 all year long. So there's the ups and downs of an NHL season. There's the back-to-back nights. With Mike Keenan as a head coach, overplaying Mika Kiprusoff and trying to get the backup in, and Curtis McElhaney or Brian Boucher back in the day, they would get to play once a month on a back-to-back night, and that you need to manage that. And the biggest thing to me is managing, if you are in that position of playing so many games, and it doesn't happen much anymore. I think the number would be around 63 games as a maximum. But back in those days, to have that number one guy, you really needed to manage the time that you were out on the ice. It was more about quality time versus quantity of time. And, the example I do give was when Marc-Andre Fleury was in Pittsburgh at the start of his career, and he was trying to become a number one goalie with the organization. But I was watching his morning skates, and he was staying out and taking one-timers and one-timers and one-timers by the defenseman at the end of practice. And I was going to try to catch up with him and to let him know, it's like, if you want to transition into being a number one goalie, you need to get off the ice. After 25 minutes, you get off the ice, and everything is game related, not practice related. He had so much fun, and as a 39-year-old goalie now, I mean, he loves the game, and he's a kid at heart. But you need to make adjustments in your preparation time.
Dave, one of the stories I recall you shared in related to a tough coach, it had something to do with the messenger, the message and the messenger.
Yeah. I mean, again, the best coaches are the best thieves, but with Daryl, there was always a message, and his delivery about the message that he wanted to share, his delivery was a grenade. And his, obviously, people skills and the way that the delivery was sent out was very harsh, very brash, but there's always a message. So just to consider, focus on what the message is here. Don't focus on the delivery, because the delivery is going to be a bomb. It's going to be a grenade. And if you get rattled with the delivery, then you will let that affect you. Listen to the message, learn from the message, but then let it go. I have a great visual. It's one of those eye watches, and what it says on the eye watch, and I send that to many of my goalies, it's let it hurt, let it heal, let it go. And to be able to let it go after a bad performance or after a bad goal and stuff, that to me is priceless for a goalie to keep on, to weather the storm and to keep on finding a way to make the next save. So listen to the message, not the delivery with Daryl Sutter. That was the key thing.
I got the question about most teams, and Pasco, I'm sure at UBC, but I know the Flames and every NHL team as a sports psychologist. How do they fit into this formula?
Well, at UBC, Laura we do have a sports psych, and she comes in and deals with the athletes. I'm not at UBC now; I'm retired from there. But what she does is she comes in and understands the players from the beginning. So, what does this player need? How does she like to receive feedback? How does he like to receive feedback? How do you want to shape things with each player? And that takes time. And then during their meetings, she would then formulate those meetings to meet the objective of that player or what that player likes to talk about. I echo what Dave says. There's a football player actually said this, and I have a clip as well that where he said it, and you can't say it better than this. And Dave and Sutter is the perfect example. Hear the message, not the tone. And he was talking about, or the football player went offside. He's been in the league 9 years. He goes, it happens too often. The coach is coaching. He goes, all the media, he says, you guys are taking it out of context. I'm a professional. I work with my family, and I understand what I need to do. I made a mistake. It shouldn't have happened. He's the coach. He's coaching. So hear the message, not the tone, was something that was very, very important. And as far as getting, like I said at the very beginning, for a goaltender, whether they're young or whether they're a pro, you're chasing a feeling. You got to get that feeling that you're confident, you're comfortable, and you're clear when you go out onto the ice, so that you have a focus on the task at hand. The book that I linked into the comments called Score for Life by Jim Fannin. I think and I've recommended this to many goaltenders by the time they turn 13, should read that book, including coaches. And it just talks about the arenas that athletes compete in: hockey, school, social. So they're, and their mental and physical fitness. They compete in 4 arenas. If they have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, now it's a 5th arena. And it continues to get bigger and bigger. So the whole idea is, how do you switch gears and then go to practice and mentally prepare to have a solid practice, knowing that you yourself are going to customize your training for the day based on what you see on the board, and ask the question, what's in it for me? And what am I going to test myself in doing in this scenario? And I think those are really important to kind of get your mind focused on what you're doing. But again, it comes down to introducing some of those details mentally to the goalie, so they know how to flex those mental muscles, and then you can add more things to it. But I find when you create lists and create this and create that and start writing on your equipment, and you start adding all of this stuff, it ends up being almost superstition versus preparation. So when you come down to figure out what this, like, Mitch Korn actually had a video with Braden Holtby, and he said this guy takes 2 hours to get ready, but he goes, this has been a career or a lifetime of trying to find what makes him feel a certain way when he goes onto the ice. And I think if you feel good and everything's going well, in your mind, you can do anything really well. But geez, if you get into an argument with someone, you're pretty upset. You can't do anything well because your mind is still agitated about how to fix a problem or an issue, or wondering what other people think, or things like that.
I wanted to get back into the idea of pulling goalies. I'm talking minor hockey here now. Some goalies have U13 is only one goalie in the Calgary teams. They can't be pulled.
Okay.
And I remember Jacques Martin doing a goaltender clinic. He was coaching in the NHL. And his philosophy was, leave him in. You got to cope with this. He didn't yank him. And then Patrick Roy fiasco with Montreal, when they left him in for a number of goals, and he demanded a trade after that. It was the last game of his career with the Canadiens. First of all, in minor hockey, I've had conversations about the merits, when you have 2 goalies, of them learning to cope with playing or not playing based on the needs of the team and the coach's opinion. So I've just suggested, and this is theoretical, if a goalie has a hot game, they get another. Not 3 in a row, but they get another. So that's a reward kind of mechanism, that you've earned another game, and the other goalie has a chance to do the same. And that's one way of doing it, but we find alternating goalies in minor hockey has been the best way to go. And quite often, when coaches get down to the crunch of a final championship game, they will end up staying what they perceive as their best goalie. And some of them have lost their jobs because of that. So that It's about development at that younger age. It's about learning to cope with things. So I'm curious at the minor hockey level, and then you can transfer this to the UBC level. At what point do they have to learn with somebody else is going to take your position?
Well, the first thing is that we could talk about minor hockey, and that is, you've got to introduce the goaltenders to those, to the playing time. So, for example, in minor hockey, I see value in playing goaltenders equally throughout the year. The reason we're putting too much emphasis on winning and losing at the younger levels of minor hockey and less on development of the hockey players. I think over the last 20 years, we've gotten really good at recruiting and not so good at developing. And I think that's a major issue in the minor hockey system. I'm actually writing another book based on that called Fair Game. But it's, at the minor hockey level, I want to tell them, hey, okay, guys, as a coach, I would sit down with them and say, okay, guys, do you guys want to be pulled out of a hockey game or not? And they go, I want to stay in. The other guy says, I want to stay in. Done. That's easy. One guy stays in, one guy stays in, and you move forward. If you say, hey, as a coach, I got to have some responsibility here too, because there's 17 other players we want to create a great experience on. So I'll tell you what, you'll stay in, but after a third goal in one period, you're going to be moved out by the other guy. So there's a sense of pressure, introduction of a little bit of pressure into that, because they're both 1-2s, and you got to teach them how to be a 2, and you got to teach them how to be a 1. And when you move up to the national team, or you move up to UBC on the men's and women's teams, there's going to be a team of number 1s. So now it comes down to how you're going to perform. It comes down to how long you've been with the program and how consistent your resume or your body of work has been. So you've got to be able to teach them how to be a great number 2, how to be a great number 3, and have the ability to switch from those roles really quickly. At UBC, what's worked for us is one goaltender plays on Friday, the next goaltender plays on Saturday until the break, which is December. When they come back from the break, that process is going to start again. But based on what happened in the first, I would say 2/3 of the season, you're going to be starting the goaltender that has been with the best numbers, and we compare how they were against the other teams. Because if we play Calgary on a Friday and a Saturday, I want to know who has statistically had a better performance against Calgary. So if we've played them, 6 times, I'll know who has had the better games against Calgary. And so forth. So I think that's where a little bit of analytics come in. The goalies are clear with what the expectations are, and you move on from there. And it's been really good for that program anyway. And I don't have someone going in, with no experience after if someone gets hurt.
I'll tell you a story
Go
about,
ahead, John.
I was coaching with Willie Desjardins, and we had a goalie. He played every game since mid-November, and we beat U of A in the finals. So we go to the Nationals, and in the pregame skate, one of our forwards caught an edge, smashed into the goalie, ripped his knee up, and the other guy hadn't played since mid-November, and he had to play in the Nationals. So it's a long time to not get in the net. And we were ahead by 2 goals with 2 minutes left and lost in overtime.
Listen, I've got a question for Dave Marcoux. I'm just wondering about when they do pull a goalie, to what degree over the course of time, like, are there conversations had with the goalie coach about that potential scenario and pre-communication about how you're going to deal with it? And are the goalies involved so that when the moment happens, it's accepted, it's coped with? David, can you comment? Or is it just the coach and his whim?
Well, it's from a minor hockey standpoint, I really love the head coach, because you look at the type of goals that are being scored, sometimes your team is completely not there and the goalie has no chance, and you just there's goalie pulls just to make a change. The one thing that I truly would recommend to coaches, to minor hockey coaches, is to make a deal with your goalie. To make a deal that at some point we need to change things up, we need to shake things up, and if I pull you and I show you the number 1 with my finger as you're coming in, that means something. That our team is no friggin' good right now. I'm pulling you for 1 shift. You're going to sit on the bench for 1 shift, and I'm going to give the bench heck here and to say the following. Guys, this goalie is going to have the chance to go back in his net after this whistle. But some of these guys here sitting on the bench, maybe you'll stay here because you're not ready to play. He was ready to play, and he's going to go back in. So you get the double whammy of motivating your team but not losing the confidence of your goalie. And I think that is not used enough in our youth hockey. And even I get that at the junior level, to have that communication and that acceptance with your goaltender that this situation I need to shake up. I need to shake up the team here, and you're going to get to play again, but some of you are not going to play. And I just find that and the second thing also is just to consider the time of the period left, the amount of time left. If there's 1 minute left in the first period and things are really going south, just wait it out. Just wait it out and make the change when you can make a change in between periods during floods. And then you can take the time calmly to explain where are we going with this. I think that, as opposed to making, the hard-ass head coaching decision and not even talking to your goalie, but to make sure also that there's somebody at the bench that goes to talk with the goalie and taps him on the pads and say, hey, just breathe here. And from a goalie standpoint, you obviously want to teach them to never have any body language, negative body language as you're coming into the bench. That screams to your team that you're a me guy and not a we guy.
I got a question for both of you guys. Something I have to deal with tonight. Our last practice, both goalies went up to one of my assistant coaches, and they told her that was way too hard. And I wasn't really happy to hear that. So how do I deal with it? And it wasn't an exceptionally hard practice. It was a contest at the end that they really had to battle in. But what are your thoughts?
For me, it's the why. Everybody always wants to know a couple things. Why are we doing what we're doing, and how is it going to benefit me? And in your case, hey, the reason why you're the coach and you wanted to play for this hockey team is to get better. And my job is to, and I usually say the mistake started at the very beginning because I picked you for my hockey team because you worked hard. You have all this energy, and now I've seen what you look like when you play well. So my job is to push you to play even better and more refined. And that's what you want, isn't it? Is to get better. In order for us to do that, we have to challenge ourselves, and that's why we have practices that have that level of intensity from time to time. So I think it's, for me, that becomes really important. I think a lot of the kids want to know why. At UBC, we kind of trick them because if we want to ask, okay, how do you like to receive feedback? Direct, indirect? Do you want an email? Do you want video? Whatever. And the team decides how they like to receive feedback. Once it's decided, okay, do we have permission to give you feedback? And that's when we'd introduce hear the message, not the tone. When you're on the bench and you're in heightened heightened intensity and the adrenaline's flowing, sometimes you're not going to be saying, "Oh, hello, Wally. Just to let you know, you were offside 4 times, in the last 2 minutes." You're going to say it in a more direct, intense way, and that goes the same. Do I have permission to treat you like a young little pro? And if the answer is yes, that's why we have hard practices, because we're going to make sure that you become the best you can be.
Dave, can you comment for Tom?
Well, it's there are some controllable elements around the game of hockey, and there's some uncontrollable elements. And at times, you will deal with, what I just have a visual here, the famous pig pen, where both nets are in a corner and they're just shooting pucks, and it's one-on-one battle, and goalies stay down, and it's like, that is totally not for the goalie. First of all, your net is on the wall, so the shaft of your stick cannot even go around your post and all that. But you do things because you are playing a team sport, and you want to have. That's why you want to have competitive people that just control the controllables, and they just compete in those moments. I thought, coaching in the NHL for 9 years, I thought I was not going to see the famous 5-on-0s. And every single year, every single week, there were 5-on-0 breakouts where players were coming in and just to go through their power play routes and all that, 5-on-0s. So is it realistic? No, but is it the team where power play is terrible, we need to go through our routes with the power play options and load a high and then two guys at the net with no defenseman and all that? You go through times where it's like, it is what it is. You're not going to change a philosophy of a coach. So you weather that storm, you go through it, and you compete. And there are times where, yes, practices are hard. Are they realistic? You want to keep it as realistic as you can. And that's why you have a goalie coach that goes out and prepares you for those moments. But it's, you don't want to show that it does affect you. If you want to only be working on your own thing in your own game, well, go play tennis or go play golf. Singles tennis, you do what you want. Single golf, you're a golfer, you go work on your game. It's all about you. But you happen to be in a team sport, and there's times that you need to get comfortable with uncomfortable. And it happens. You got to weather that storm.
Well, the thing that they seemed to be upset about, it was a shootout contest. So there's two teams, and they get about 20 seconds, and it's a 2-on-0. But one team could send one to make it a 2-on-1. And if you score, you can steal the other team's puck and go. So they really have to battle on the 2-on-0, and they should get scored on. But the whole deal is, I'd like them to stay covered in that 6 feet instead of sliding right out of the net and all this kind of stuff. So there's it is chaotic in a game sometime, and you're swimming. So, but then if the other guys score, they come in and they're trying to steal a puck. So now you're playing a 2-on-2. Or the smart teams, what they do is they send in one player on a breakaway and the other one goes and defends a 2-on-1 if they figure it out. And they do that. So, they really have to battle, and they really don't have that great of a chance if they're good players. But, that seemed to be what they didn't like.
Tom, here's my, in defense of the players, here's my point. I do a 3-on-0 umbrella at one end against the goalie. And the players have practiced deceptive quick puck movement and one-time shooting. Touch passing. Look one way, pass another. They should score. It's a goalie killer. So knowing that, I tell the goalies, look, this is a goalie killer. You're going to stay up and you're not going to try to make every save. Stay square to the puck. And when I did that, they maintained their posture. They were square to pucks. They gave up goals, but they weren't psyched out and defeated by the number of goals they gave up.
Yeah, but opposite Wally, I want them battling in this one. I want them battling. I want them scrambling and,
Okay, well, my
getting under
point
control.
is on the 3-on-0 that I'm talking about.
Well, I've seen you do it. I know what you're doing.
I'm just saying.
It's kind of a different thing. It's not a contest.
Well, then, if you tell them before the why of it, then they're going to appreciate it. This is like my evaluation of a goalie to the coach, to Dave and Pasco, is pretty simple. We expect you to make the first save. And then when you make the second, we're going to watch you. If you make the third in a row, we're likely going to keep you. And my statement to them, and Dave is using it, it's not dodgeball. That's it. It's that simple. So who battles in the net is critical. And as long as the why of your activity is communicated, they can accept that. And I think just recognizing before this could be frustrating, battle through it. That's the purpose of this. Might alleviate the negative reaction that can lead to, and I do know that your entire team needs to work harder, more consistently. And that's a quality of some very talented, skilled teams. Oilers being one of them, the Leafs being another, and they've just got to work harder at the team game, pay the price more, and feel like a team contributing to the end cause. So all of this is, really critical information at any level. But if you reward the best players with so much extra ice time that they are exhausted from long shifts, they don't recover because they're going out too often. Well, the other players are on the bench not playing. That to me has happened in the NHL too much.
Mm-hmm.
This past playoffs, the Oilers managed the bench well. Players played roles, and the ice time minutes were far more balanced. I think that's the art of coaching, and it's all what we want to get better at. So these conversations are really, really important. So the intangibles, Tom, of what you're trying to develop with that drill, that's what it's all about for the goalies.
Yeah, if I may interject here, there is a time and place for those types of drills. If you have a number one goalie heading into the fourth round of the Stanley Cup playoffs and he is your guy, you don't want him involved in that type of play, or to start a practice with a little fun drill of 3-on-3 and then pulling something and not being able to play. At this time of the year, with Tom doing that type of drill, at the minor hockey level or at a state or wherever, I think it does make sense. But again, you need to consider the when to do these drills. When are you heading on a Thursday? Are you heading into a 3-game and 3-night type of situation versus doing this on a Monday where it's more, or the terrible Tuesdays with a battle day. Dave Runback with the Moose Jaw Warriors would always have his terrible Tuesdays, And that would be a day where guys knew, and goalies knew, that you'd have these types of competitive games, and it was a hard day. But I think
It was a Tuesday.
a lot.
Tom?
It was a Tuesday practice.
Terrible Tuesday. Tom, terrible Tuesdays.
They only have 2 practices a week.
Well, this week we had 3.
Oh,
But we're not on our regular schedule yet.
Huh.
We have the tournament this weekend. One of my goalies from Sept came up to me after practice, and she just made the dinos. So she's got 3 years left, I guess, because the COVID year didn't count. So she told me she made the University of Calgary team. So she was pretty happy about that.
That's great.
Listen, I've got a point on goalies, you guys. All the goalies you talked about, you dropped the name Leonard, you dropped the Russian goalie, the Finnish goalie. And Dave, we're talking about they want the pass across. They want to play the pass receiver. And back in my era, European were taught to pass. They celebrate scoring off the pass. So European goalies have gotten good at defending scoring off the pass. And when we had Sean Burke with the national team, we had him play deep so he could move laterally. He didn't align for the shooter because the priority playing the Russians and all the European teams, international hockey, was the pass. So I'm sure you are aware, Pasco and Dave, they play a fun game at the end of practices in Europe. There might be 6 players stay out and they'll play 3-on-3. 2 goalies might stay out. And they can only score off the pass. They will celebrate scoring off the pass more than scoring in North America. So part of the adaptation to what those goalies want, that's what happens in Europe. So weighing the European versus the North American. And I guess I have one question here. You guys being Canadian goaltending experts, is does it appear, or am I generalizing too much? Why are the best goalies appearing to come from European countries?
Well, for me, like I said, the main objective why Europe is there's a few different examples. Europe is a bit more structured. Some of the players are, or so the goaltending coaches they belong to clubs, so they follow a certain system. The kids know how to exercise, do pre style warm-ups. They go on the ice, they exercise. Here kids are dropped off. They run into the rink. They throw their gear on 10 minutes before practice, and then they go. Another thing is that there's a lot of free enterprise. So there's a lot of, like Dave and myself and several other goalie coaches have their goalie programs, but very few are willing to collaborate and get on the same page as to what the developmental priorities are. And that brings me full circle to the beginning, where you talk about, whether it be goalie IQ, how much information is too much and when is it too early or when is it too late to teach certain things. So I think we're in a situation where the priorities aren't in place and they don't have a personal scoreboard as a goalie coach as to, okay, when do I feel they've gotten that piece of information so then I can add the next piece to the puzzle to their game. And we in North America, we don't do that. We, at the ages of 5 to 10, why do we really put pressure on coaches to win per se between 5 and 10 years old? Why not keep score, but we're measuring the coaches based on the development of all the players on the team. So when they were given an evaluation at the beginning of the season to work on Timmy's skating and crossovers on his left, has he improved? Has she improved in goal? Can she now catch the puck because she got 0 for 10 during their little evaluation or skill set inventory situation? So I think that between that age group, you got to identify, can they learn? How fast can they learn? Are they willing to learn and do the work on their own? And if you find those people, then those are going to be your high performance channel. And those who just want to enjoy the game and have fun, but really have no desire to move on to this level, they then can go the recreational route. But in Europe, they focus on mental training. They focus on their physical training. They focus on the dynamic warm-ups and cool downs. In North America, it's, they grab a soccer ball, they go kick it around, and then they go into the room and they go and play. And I just think that needs to change, in my opinion. The other thing I'd like to see change between 5 and 10 would be cross-ice games. So the kids get an opportunity to touch the puck and are forced to make quicker decisions in a smaller rink. And that way you could literally have, 6 teams competing against each other on the ice, because you could have in one end you can have a 3-on-3 going cross ice. You can have, teams against each other there. In the middle or neutral zone, you could have another 2 teams playing, and you play for 20 minutes and then you switch teams as far as what team you're going to play against. And that way they can have an hour and 20 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes of ice and play at least 3 different games.
See, Pasco, you're preaching to the choir here. That's Tom's specialty. Tom grew up more familiar with the Finnish model than any North American, because he spent time over there with some of the leading experts from Russia and Finland before you were born. And the idea of letting the game teach small area games is part of what he advocates. And I want to share this story from yesterday's practice, Tom. I watched one U13 team practice, deliberate breakouts, no resistance. It was basically a retrieval and a wheel and passing to the winger. And then they went D to D and passed to the winger or the center on breakouts deliberately. And the next drill they did was a forecheck, 3 players on 5 breaking out. And they were doing D to D breakouts when the other team were reading and acting and passing. So the hockey IQ for the players is not developed. So the art of coaching is to recognize different deliberate practice, passive or posture.
See, that's why stamina.
Game like practice where all your passing and your shooting.
Because one day you're gonna forget, and what if they just steal your papers?
It's predicated on the situation. You're making decisions under pressure, in chaos. That's the nature of the game. And too many coaches do too much 5-on-0, like Dave mentioned. And you need a degree of that, but after watching practice yesterday, I went to the other rink, and Shayla, Tom, came out and was running the U13 team practice, because in the other rink, her head coach, Kyle Wanvig, who played in the World Junior team and played in the NHL in Europe, he was away at a business conference, and she worked with him, so she ran the ice. She played the small area game, which was 3 versus 3 against 1 goalie, but 2 jokers on each side of the ice at the half board. And they could use these jokers and get open for the puck. They were getting open and making passes so well that I actually thought they were U15 players. They, beyond my expectation, compared to the deliberate practice in the other rink, to this game-like, watching them think and make plays and get open, it was night and day. And I went over and asked the coach for permission to speak to the players and compliment them. Let the coaches know that the small area game they're playing is teaching more and developing more than any drill you'll ever do. So I think that's just a message for coaches is, we're so drill oriented. They're looking for drills, but they're deliberate and shots are here and shots are there and it's good skill practice. But boy, at what point do you apply your brain and decision making to those situations? So that's sort of what I'm glad I got that in from the point of view of our skaters. And my hope is that coaches will become more appreciative of the specialty of the goalie position, and the goalie will be less isolated from the team. Because I've witnessed this where goalies are just in their own island, off to themselves, keep to themselves, don't bother me. If a goal is scored on me, I had one U13 goalie that didn't want to talk to anybody. The routine would be to have players come back and console the goalie, but she didn't want to be bothered. But then it filtered back to the blaming of the coach and the way the team was playing. The goals weren't her fault. So that whole idea of educating the parents and the coaches to be responsible and accountable for their performance, to be a valued team member. I wonder, Pasco or Dave, if you have anything to add to the formula, whether it's pro, minor hockey, and what you're doing now to our conversation today.
Sorry, I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Well, I'm just curious, when you add everything up that we've talked about today, Pascal, you've talked about the national team, UBC, the pros you've worked with. Both you and Dave have talked about your minor hockey experiences and ideas for pulling goalies or making goalies learn to have to adapt to the reality of competition and earning their ice time. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about here that would help coaches, goalie coaches, or team coaches?
Well, if I was to sum it up, I would say the first thing is that we have to remember what age group we're coaching when we're coaching. Have a scoreboard or have a checklist of what you're going to go through and make sure that you as a goaltending coach, assistant coach, and head coach know what the plan is moving forward. The main thing is to not have to be in this feeling that you have to give everything all at once, but really make sure they understand the theme of that particular practice. Because if you go up to a goaltender at the end of a practice and go, what was the theme of today's practice? What was the purpose of the practice today? They walk out going, I have no idea. I was doing glove saves for a bit, and then we started doing 2-on-1s, and the whole theme of it has to be about, today we worked on odd man rushes, and I identified what a high to low odd man rush was. And, when he's this far away, I'm going to do this. When he's this close, I'm going to do this. So you're giving them one or two, different options to learn. So really understanding what you're trying to deliver and over what period of time, and recognize how fast and how slow people do learn, and the areas, upon which or how they learn, like the tools that you would need and how they learn the fastest way. And then the next aspect would be to recognize, and I think what we need to do is change our philosophy on what happens between 5 and 10, and then start introducing the more winning category. And when you're talking about evaluations, we should have a certification for evaluators. So that we can teach them how to become scouts in the future. Goaltending coaches should take a goaltending certification course, not because they don't know anything, but need to know how to organize how they teach in a more appropriate manner so they can become more effective. Often I ask goaltending coaches, what's your scoreboard when it comes to defining who you are as a goalie coach? If like my scoreboard would be to see the least number of athletes and have the highest percentage make it. Okay, in order to do that, what has to happen? And that comes down to organizing your thoughts, making sure that you are really analyzing what your team needs and what your goaltenders need, and customizing your approach for your goaltenders. When it comes to hockey, it's important to work your strength with everyone else's strength on the coaching staff and be able to know how you can contribute value. And in closing, the final part is your mind, much like your body, needs nutrition, needs really good food to go in. And your brain, nowadays there's so much stimulation from electronics and things like that, that we have to be very careful what we feed into the minds of the young people these days, because I think we're too soft. The players are getting soft, and I think that they need to understand that life is hard. We go through difficulty, and we have more and more challenges with people with mental health challenges, because we haven't really taught them how adversity can help us versus hurt us. And I'll leave you with this point. Sometimes when you think you're getting buried, you're being planted. So you just have to really understand that, it's not always bad against you. You're being given the opportunity to grow from a problem, a challenge, whether it be a tough coach that Dave had to deal with, or a really, inclusive coach that Chief from the St. Louis Blues, now Toronto Maple Leafs, if it wasn't for his approach to opening up his coaching staff, Dave Alexander wouldn't have shared or been able to share an opportunity that excited all the St. Louis Blues the year they won the Stanley Cup, on players recognizing goaltender tendencies, and it got the team scoring again. So I think there's value in looking at someone and saying, I really value what you have to bring to the table. Let's talk about these and go from there.
Dave Marcoux, any thoughts, comments?
No, that's very well said. A very good synopsis there, Pasco, with closing. I think that is a great way to close things out. Just for coaches, maybe just to make sure that we are inclusive, make sure that we are considering in our practices, include the goalies into your practices. There's too many one-on-ones for 20 minutes of a 50-minute practice that do not have any value for a goalie. How can you make that one-on-one all the way down the ice? How can you make it and turn it into value for your goalies? Or every breakout that you have at some point with the 13, 15-year-old goalies, let's start including goalies in breakouts. Instead of dumping it into the corner where the goalie never handles it, rim pucks in and include your goalies in the process of breakouts. That to me is a very, very valuable thing. And I think we can conclude with that.
Well, I just wanted to mention, in keeping with that, Hockey Alberta, to their credit, they ask every head coach, they assign an assistant coach to look at every drill with the goalie in mind. What's the purpose of the drill relative to the position of goaltending? And they have added in every drill where there's a direct attack shot, an opportunity for low zone offense, or that low zone offensive play, a second puck. So it's a different positioning, movement, laterally, vertically, and making the practice goalie friendly. And even if they're talking to the goalies, I don't know. I'm sure at Tom's age, U15, you could ask them this drill, how are you going to play it? What's in it for you? What do we need to focus on? Our concern is with the coaches. mine is they're doing 2-on-1s and they can't make a pass laterally because they don't open up and there's no deception. So I'm concerned with the skaters, not the goalies. So at the U15 level, I'd like to see more deception and speed in direct attacks, taking a shot, passing, look-offs and shooting for rebounds, more attention to deliberate practice with the goalie knowing that every drill can be executed in special ways offensively, and they have to be able to position. So, guys, I really want to thank you for coming on. I'm sorry for the technological delay. I thought Sammy Jo Small would be on. She did a 3 years and 3 Olympics and written a book called The Role I Played. She backed up for 3 Olympics. And quite a remarkable book about accepting your role, and probably from an internal leadership point of view, she contributed to more gold medals than a lot of the players because of her ability to inspire those around her and the positive energy she was able to exude carried through to the team. So
Undoubtedly, with that type of attitude, it's very difficult at the national team level. Wally, you've had many years there. They ask the question: can this goaltender be a number 3? Can they be a number 2? Can they be a number 1? Well, you're on a team of number 1, so not everybody can be the number 1 goalie. So how can you be the number 2, and how can you play the role of number 3 and understand those roles and how to switch those roles when needed? And that takes a really skilled and talented person. So what she has to offer, being in the third situation, is very important. And I'm sure Dave will agree with me on this one. And tell me if I'm wrong, Dave, because I don't want to speak for you. I have a lot of respect for you. I think telling a goaltender, even at the minor hockey league level, that you're the number 1 and someone's the number 2, even in short-term competitions like national programs, there's no need to tell a goaltender whether they're a number 1 or number 2. Their play is going to dictate it. And rather than peg someone into a number 2 or number 3 role when you're going into the final stages, you don't need to say, okay, the next 2 games are going to be, you're a number 1, you're a number 2, because if someone gets hurt or if someone has an off game, it really deflates the other people. When you're in a National Hockey League, the contract dictates the number 1 goaltender for the most part, and they're usually going to be paid according to their consistency. And and that's what you're seeing with where Swayman's trying to acquire a 10-year, $10 million contract or whatever, close to that. So it's just important to be able to play those roles and move in and out of them very quickly.
now, before I go, I'd just like to ask the two of you. You've been at it a number of years. Dave, longer than most goalie coaches, and still at it. How have things changed in terms of goalie coaches and the game in general relative to goalie coaches and coaching in general? Back in my era, we treated them like targets. And how has it changed, or has it not changed enough?
Well, before I answer that question, I just want to follow up with Sammy Joe Small with her role. Just think of this one. Mika Kiprasov played how many games in the NHL, and number 1 guy, how many Stanley Cups does he have? His backup, a while back, Curtis McElhaney, has 2 Stanley Cups as the backup to Vasilevsky with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He will be remembered as an unbelievable player, an unbelievable teammate, and he finishes his career with 2 Stanley Cups. when Mika Kiprasov doesn't even have one. So there is that different role that I did want to use as an example also. Very, very important role on a hockey team. Having said that, we have a long way to go still, Wally, in terms of changing the culture, understanding the role of a goalie coach, how to utilize your goalie coach properly. A lot of the best coaches are former goaltenders. You look at Bob Hartley, you look at Jacques Martin, you look at Jeff Blashill. Those are all former goalies. Goaltenders and all the color commentators around the league, most of them are former goalies that read and understand the game from a different perspective. So to utilize your goalie coaches and to utilize their insight, head coaches need to get out of their own head sometimes, and we still have a long way to go, but it's come a long way and it's a work in progress.
Well, hopefully having everybody on and being able to do this, and I'm going to probably take the next 2 weeks to edit this. The first week of every month, we do meet at Cadence. So Dave and Boness, you're welcome to join us the first Tuesday of October, Thursday of October at Cadence for coffee face to face. And I want to thank Pasco and yourself for joining us and sharing your your expertise. And I will say one thing: it's really hard for coaches to keep up with the vastness of information, positionally and tactically, individually, team tactics and team play, as well as the goaltending expertise, and incorporate that in an automatic fashion. We're not there yet, and I don't know that they can ever be. So I think the closing thing I'd like to say is all of us, in whatever role you do, is take advantage of learning from one another, respecting one another, and serving the players' needs in the end for the best result. So I just wanted to leave it at that and thank everybody for coming on, and have a great weekend, guys. And
Take care, guys. Take care, Dave.
take care.
See you, Tom.
Take care,
All
everybody.
right. Tom, you might hang out for a little bit more. I'm just